Hey guys, AJ here, and I'm going to be talking about Mistborn and my journey through the Cosmere. I started with Mistborn, the Final Empire, so let's get into what I thought about it. A more in-depth review than my reaction video. I love the book. If you saw my reaction, you know that. I thought it was great. So great. It has been a long time since a book captured me that way, and I could not put it down. I've only been putting it down when I have obligations to do, and even then I'm already in the middle of the Well of Ascension book 2 of the Mistborn series, and I may have spent a New Year's party reading that most of the time. You know. My thoughts on this thing. I just am fascinated with how Brandon Sanderson is able to take a lot of these real world elements. So obviously, if you haven't read the book, I sure hope you're not watching this because it's going to provide a bunch of spoilers. But Mistborn is about a girl named Vin who is part of the lower class, a peasant, kind of like a serf in the medieval days. And she's an orphan on the streets and just trying to survive with all these thieving crews. And then she finds out that she has this really cool power. She's a Mistborn, which means she can control and manipulate all the different elements of metal magic that they've got in this world, the Final Empire. And then she runs into a bunch of other people who teach her how to do this, and they decide to overthrow the government because the government is an evil, oppressive empire. Classic fantasy stuff. We've got, Star Wars with their oppressive empire. Aragon has its oppressive empire. Oppressive empire is just a very common fantasy trope, which is fine. I don't mind having a rebellion against the oppressive fantasy empire. He touches on just some great elements with doing that, though. To overthrow a powerful empire, you need to figure out its weaknesses. It's not just magic. Magic is cool. I think the magic system in here is really great, which I'll get to later. But to actually have a revolution, he includes so many real-world elements. There's this scene in the book where they sit down, they're like, hey, how do we break down how to overthrow the empire? And a lot of what they focus on is the economics of the government, as well as rallying people to their cause. Those are, you kind of need that if you want to overthrow a type of government. If the government doesn't have money, that's a lot of their influence and power just gone. And, getting people to join you and rise up and rebel means they're depriving people of the working class who are providing all the luxury and a lot of the hard labor to keep this government and this empire running. So I just thought that was really cool to preview into their little meeting of how to overthrow this final empire. And yeah, that was just super interesting. Another real world element he brings in is the oppression. Say there was an empire ran by some immortal magic dude for 1,000 years and he favored one group over the other. Things would be bad. If you did have an immortal emperor, things would stagnate. And that's what's kept the empire going. Stability and stagnation. It almost reminds me a little bit of Dune, for 10,000 years from the Butlerian Jihad to when Paul Atreides shows up. 10,000 years is a long time, but their society's very stagnant. It just, not a lot has changed due to certain elements. We see the same thing here. 1,000 years of the ska, the peasants, the slaves, the working class just being worn down upon, told that they're not worth anything, forced into horrible, horrible situations, receiving no compensation for their work, never knowing if tomorrow they're going to get killed just for annoying a nobleman. That's got to wear on the human spirit. I mean, 1,000 years of you and your ancestors suffering because you didn't initially join with this crazy dude who took over the world. Ooh, that's kind of bad. It's kind of bad. While there are some who are rising to fight the oppression, just the majority of people are kind of apathetic. There is a comfort in the familiar and the stable. Starting a revolution, overthrowing the government, chaos is probably gonna happen. Are they really gonna have freedom? Who knows? Regardless, if you get caught, you're dead. Possibly tortured into death. or other horrible, horrible things. So why risk it? You have food. You maybe have some of your family and friends. Just put your head down and be a good little ska. I can see why it was really hard to motivate these people into a rebellion. I mean, yikes. But there are also some things that motivate people. Faith and hope are really big motivators for people. I mean, we see it throughout history, and it's a huge topic across so many different forms of media. You just have all of these people who, even though it seems hopeless, they have hope that there is something better out there, and they want that. And so they keep fighting no matter the odds. I mean, that's one thing I love with Star Wars is this constant message of hope and family. It doesn't matter how dark it is. As long as you have hope that you can get something better, you can make something better, you should go for it. As long as you make your sacrifice worth the cost. I mean, that's part of what made Rogue One so impactful. Anyway, I'm getting slightly off topic with Star Wars. That can be a totally different video. So yeah. And how do you get hope? You make people believe in something. Now, we have a character named Kelsier, who I'll talk a little bit about more later. But Kelsier is just oozing with that riz. He's very charismatic. And he consistently asks Sazed, the scholar character, how did these people who had faith in the early days of the Empire keep fighting? They had faith. They had hope. What makes a religion last longer? A martyr. Brilliant. Just absolutely brilliant. Holy cow. There's this quote by Chester Himes. Martyrs are needed to create incidents. Incidents are needed to create revolutions. Revolutions are needed to create progress. And here we see fabulous examples of that. Kelsier does all this work to build up this force to fight the Empire, and then he's mermaidered, destroyed, disposed of very easily by their scary immortal Lord Ruler. Whew. But he did so many things to inspire these people to hope and like stand up for themselves and to like fight back for their rights and freedom. And bam, the world changes. They're able to go kill the Lord Ruler. Revolution comes. And this book is about book 1, but I am in book 2 right now, and I'm thoroughly enjoying seeing the consequences of a revolution. But that'll be for once I finish that book. Just first of all, I love how he takes a very realistic approach to a lot of these things. It's just horrible oppression and the horrible things that go with oppression when people get power hungry, and like what they do to other people when they think they're more powerful and above them, and when you dehumanize people, you don't see them as people anymore, so who cares what you do to them? That stuff with oppression is very realistic. Fighting corruption and complacency, also very realistic. The need to create a revolution, how to keep the revolution going. I mean, the poor Scott have been failing for 1,000 years. They think a massive massacre is a success for their revolution, their rebellion. Like, what? Oh my gosh, these poor people. They're so downtrodden. Needing a martyr, a charismatic leader to gather people and then get something going. Their death making it last a long time. So yeah, I thought that was just very, very brilliant to bring those in. Other thing I love are the characters. So people told me before I read this book that it was very YA, and I don't disagree with that. It felt rather YA in certain ways, but I like YA. Personally, even though I'm older now, I still enjoy it, so I didn't mind. I love a good feisty female main character. I love it. Oh my gosh. Vin is just... she's such a fun character. She's got all these layers. Poor girl is utterly traumatized by her past. Everyone betraying her. She's just this, like, 16-year-old girl just, like, living with the thieves who are, like, all men, and has reasonable worries about them coming on to her. Poor thing. And then she gets brought into this group where friendship and trust is a thing. They teach her how to use her powers and like help her become who she is. And it's just a great journey to watch her go through. I'm sure the journey throughout the whole trilogy is amazing. Just even in book 1, I loved it. She's a scammer, and then she keeps scamming people while pretending to be a noblewoman, but she's starting to explore the feminine side of herself now that she feels safe enough to do so. It's just great. She still remains feisty and traumatized, poor thing. But you get to see her open up more to the possibilities of better things to be out there. She gains hope. The beginning of the book, all she cared about was living to the next day and getting a bit of food. Just a morsel. And at the end of the book, she's killing the Lord Ruler. She completes Kelsier's goal of having the revolution. She's just witty and clever and a bit hard. She's no Mary Sue. Ugh, she's not. She is a complex, intricate character who has her own failings, and I've loved the journey for her, and I can't wait to see what else she's gonna do. Kelsier. Oh man, what a figure. How interesting that he went from just wanting to be like the richest thief ever, and then he experienced something super traumatizing where he thinks his like wife, lover, I can't remember whatever, the woman, his beloved, just betraying him, and then she died in the pits of Hathson. He snaps and suddenly discovers his own magic power, and he's like, cool, I want to overthrow the government. Screw you. The Scott shouldn't have to live like this. I shouldn't have to live like this. This is horrible. I'm done with you. I'm fighting for what you did to the woman I love and to me. And he just does brilliantly. He smiles as a little rebellion. How fun is that? Smiling is a rebellion. In that kind of oppressive society, absolutely, I would believe it. Smiling. Oh, poor man. And he just has so much charisma about him. It is hard to get people to follow someone who isn't charismatic. And he very much exemplifies that. Not only is he charismatic, though, he's also clever. He is so clever in how he plots things and keeps parts of it fractured so not everybody knows it, both for safety reasons, also to like make sure his plan actually works and they don't interfere with certain things like becoming a martyr. Just how he wraps it all together to create this brilliant thing that actually like gets momentum and succeeds, and then hopefully keeps lasting past this book. It is so hard to do that kind of thing. And I love that he is not a Gary Sue. His father is shown quite often. He is very much a prejudice against the nobleman. He is rather selfish and a bit aggravating at times, but it works so well. It works so well. He is just brilliant, and he has his crew with him, and he picked them because they believe in the cause and because he knew they would need to do things if they created a new government. Another quote for you is by John Cotter. He says, producing major change in an organization is not just about signing up one charismatic leader. You need a group, a team, to be able to drive the change. One person, even a terrific charismatic leader, is never strong enough to make all of this happen. And that's absolutely true. Kelsier knew he couldn't do the job alone. Everyone on the crew has their special skills to do what they need to do, and so they could run the government later. I mean, that reveal when the Khandra like shows up and he's like revealed Kelsier's like final plan after the martyrdom, like he's like, yeah, one of you is a bureaucrat, one of you is a politician, one of you is a general, whatever. So great. And I love the crew. This interesting assortment of men who've had to spend their whole lives hiding that they're mistings because it's illegal to be half ska and a misting. And brilliant. Just brilliant. The characters are so engaging. Love it. I also love Elend. He is a great character. Just, the poor boy who is a scholar and is trying to look more beyond what his society says, but he's also a product of that society. And, of course, he falls for the cute, feisty main character, of course. And he's just very, book smart, not necessarily street smart. In total contrast to Vin, who, has hardly read a book for pleasure in her life and is so street smart and used to surviving on the streets, and he's just like this spoiled nobleman's heir. But he is so tender towards Vin and opens up something in her that's really soft and sweet. And I love that they don't just like fall for each other immediately. There is a build up to the romance, and there's that game. I love political intrigue. That's another thing he does really well in this book, is all of the political intrigue. How do you work in a society like this? It's politics. It's who can outmaneuver who. I'm lying to you. Are you lying to me? Can I trust you? Can you trust me? I mean, I basically just quoted the song The Riddle from the Scarlet Pimpernel Broadway cast. But anyway, it builds up to something really sweet and monumentous when she's like, no, Kelsier, I love him. And Kelsier, despite his absolute hatred of noblemen, saves Elend's life near the end of the book. And then Elend goes and tries to save Vin and all these wonderful things. He is so great at making things build up to where you want to read more. World building. Holy cow. He is so good at creating something familiar enough, at least with this series, familiar enough that you can like pick up what he's putting down, and then he throws like his magic words in, or his world's words, you know, fantasy words. And you're like, okay, so that means that, like, prologue, you have all these characters being like, oh, the peasants, the ska, the servants, the working class, or whatever. And you're like, okay, I don't know the word ska. That must be the fantasy word for what these people are. I think I know what you mean, but tell me more about this world. Why are these people oppressed? What's going on? He just always leaves you wanting more. You want to figure out more of what's going on. I love the breadcrumbs of having the pieces of the logbook be like the little underneath the chapter headings, little snippet. I actually figured out fairly early on that those were from whoever was supposed to be the Lord Ruler, the hero of the ages. And so that was really fun picking that up. And then we like get to read actually in the book, the completed logbook. I did suspect when he said that he's from Kalenium, and then Sazed, the terrorist man, reveals that the language they speak today is a dialect of the terrorist language. Not even the main terrorist language, it's a dialect, and not whatever they spoke in Kalenium. I was like, that's kind of weird. The hero of ages is from Kalenium. If he was the Lord Ruler, wouldn't everyone speak the Kalenium language? That's suspicious. That's weird. And then, of course, it's later revealed that the Lord Ruler is not the hero of ages. It is, in fact, Rashad, whatever the name, who was one of the pack men for the hero. And he killed him and took his place and took the power for himself. And he's the Lord Ruler. He gives you just enough tidbits that if you're paying attention, you can pick up on stuff. And then the reveal is so worth it. Oh my gosh. I've heard like jokes of people being like, oh yeah, I read The Way of Kings. It was like most of it was a bunch of nothing until the very end, but I still loved it anyway. And I could see it. He's so good at creating interesting things, even if stuff doesn't happen. And I really like the pacing in the book. I was a little worried he's going to extend the revolution over 3 long books. I was going to like cry because that's a long time. The book, you see how thick these are? Like 2 different copies of the same book. Whoops, hi Mike. They're so thick. I don't mind a thick book. I like reading long books, but like, don't make me read an entire trilogy just about the revolution. Like watching the Star Wars OG trilogy was a totally different thing. No, don't make me read it. Don't make me read it. Mm-mm. So I'm glad he didn't. The revolution was successful. And then book 2 is about how do you keep the revolution successful. I mean, the revolution often needs its own children. The chaos is unstable. I digress. He's just fantastic at that. And then I knew that Brandon Sanderson was like known for his magic systems, but like, how do you think of that? Having the metal burning allomancy, that's so clever. Because most magic is you need some kind of internal, external force to produce magic. like in Harry Potter, you have a wand and you have to either be born a wizard or you're not born a wizard. It's kind of determined by blood, but kind of not, because Mugborns exist, which maybe are descendants of squibs. Regardless, that's not the most clear in Harry Potter, like written canon. In Star Wars, everyone has the Force. It's just different levels of the Force. A lot of fantasy series media have like mana, like you have a certain amount of mana you can use and you deplete your source and then you're like tired and exhausted, you have to like wear it off. In Dungeons and Dragons, different types of magic, but like basically if you run out of spell slots, you're screwed. You need a rest. Even warlocks have to take a short rest. Even warlocks. And so just figuring out a way to like do both was so interesting. I can't wait to read more and figure out like how exactly the Allomancers came into place and how he gave it specifically to the nobleman bloodlines. So Allomancy in this book is you have to be from noble blood because you were favored with this gift. It's hereditary. And you either have access to only one of the metals or you have access to all of them. You're either a misting or you're a mistborn. That's just so cool. So like you have to be born with it, but then you like need extra stuff to help you. So they like down metal and then burn it inside them to produce certain effects. How do you think of that? That is so interesting. Like, sure, I've thought of different magic systems before, but like nothing in depth. Like, I gotta go look into this guy's like advice on how to make magic systems, because if this is just Mistborn, I am so curious what on earth the other books are like. Oh, I'm holding it upside down. Mistborn. Shiny. Mistborn. Mistborn. Or Mistborn, the Final Empire. Regardless. Same book. So, yeah, I highly enjoy this book. I'm thrilled to be getting through the second book. I give it like a 9.5 out of 10. It's been so long since I've been so invested in a series I haven't tried before. So good. I definitely recommend it to anyone interested. And I'm over halfway through the second book already, and I will record a reaction and everything else to that as well. Thank you guys so much for recommending this book series to me. I cannot wait. Oh, my poor microphone. I keep hitting it. The poor thing. I cannot wait to keep on reading and seeing how this trilogy goes. And then Era 2 of Mistborn. I'm not sure what that's about. I'm really trying to avoid spoilers. Thank you guys so much for everything and watching my silly little video. Stick around for more book content and more cosplay content and other random things that come off the top of my head, because I'm a nerd geek and neurodivergent, so my head is kind of all over the place. So catch you later. Bye.